how's it going? Just before we get into the episode, I want to let you know that we now have a Patreon. I'm pretty sure you know what a Patreon is. It's a way you supporting this podcast. If you want to help us, cover the cost of the studio, all those kind of things, and maybe get a bit of extra content for yourself. If you join at the lowest tier, you will get 48 hours early access to all the studio episodes. And we got some big guests coming on, so it's going to be worth doing that. And if you hit the higher tiers, maybe you get a little bit of extra stuff. We got some custom content that's going to be exclusive to the Patreon that you can't see anywhere else. And at the highest tier, maybe I'll do a little custom content specifically for you. Yep, that's all available. It's patreon.com/Kinell Sinister Cinema. The link's in the comments. If you are interested, check that out. Anyway, on with the show.
Yes, people, what's good? I'm Kinell, and this is Sinister Cinema, where we get deep into the guts of the stranger side of cinema. Kinell Sinister Cinema is brought to you by Forgotten Sons Apparel. Check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Forgotten Sons Apparel is a York-based streetwear brand drawing inspiration from alternative culture, tattoos, film, classic TV and cartoons from our childhood. In our own words, if you like our stuff half as much as we do, then we like it twice as much as you. I'm a big fan of this brand and I love the guys who make it. They've supported me for years, way before I was podcasting. They supported me in my battle rap career. You might have seen me rocking some of their garms on Don't Flop and other leagues. I love Forgotten Sons Apparel and I'm urging you all to check them out at forgottensonsapparel.co.uk. Right, now on with the show.
Hey, what's good? It is once again the KSC number 12. Thank you for liking, subscribing, all those YouTube things. And if you're listening on an audio format, cheers for that as well. Flipping, head over to the YouTube and give us a bit of love on there, though, because I want to get that popping a bit more. I'm paying for a studio out here. Yes. So anyway, guest today, Scott.
Hello.
How are you, la?
Very good, thank you. Good to be here.
Yeah, man, yeah.
Red Hill. It sounds like a haunted film itself. It's like Red Hill Studios.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
What goes down here?
It's got a little bit of that vibe to it, hasn't it? Flipping, we've got some creepy corridors and that on the way to the studio. All that kind of thing, man. Crazy business.
Yeah.
But, what we decided we were going to talk about today, is we kept it kind of vague.
Yeah.
But kind of with a bit of directional. We said kind of like a arty type psychological thrillers. Which sounds like it's specific, but really it encompasses quite a lot.
So much, yeah.
Yeah.
I just sort of picked films at random, films that, there's one film that came to mind immediately, but the other four were just I looked at my shelf and I thought, right, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Yeah. At the shelves, man. So you're a collector and all.
I'm a collector, but I'm starting to get rid of them now because of streaming services, and I feel like they just take up so much room. Get rid of them. So I'm rewatching a lot of them. So it was actually really good to do this because it just got me rewatching a lot of stuff.
Yeah. I'm actually going completely the opposite way, man. Flipping, I was streaming services for ages, but I noticed stuff kept being taken off the streaming services. So I've gone back to buying Blu-rays and flipping buying. I've just bought a UHD player and all so I'm going even more into buying hard copies
Yeah. I do that for collections. I've got a few sort of artificial eye collections, a lot of French film that are just huge. Abbott Costello, I have a 25 DVD box that's just huge.
Yeah.
So I'm not getting rid of any of that, because it's just so compact and efficient the way you can just store it. And there's 10 DVDs within a little box. But all of the one that's just packaged one to one is just oh, come on,
Yeah, it's them ones, isn't it? One thing that I kind of recently I kind of got onto the fact that the HMV have got a DVD and Blu-ray sale on at the minute, and it was pretty exceptional. I just happened to be walking past the one in town on the day they said walk there. Got that snazzy Blu-ray Kubrick box set of all the Kubrick for 25 quid. It was flipping brilliant. I was there thinking, oh wow, what a bargain! I'm absolutely buzzing with this. Well pleased with myself. Quality films. I saved a lot of money there then. And then I noticed that in as well as the Blu-rays, it had the UHDs of The Shining and 2001. So then I just spent a couple $100 on a UHD player. So it wasn't that much of a saving, but I was going to get one eventually anyway. And now I've got the UHD player, so it's that. And obviously I had to get a multi-region one because I've got all these imported Blu-rays. It's all that kind of thing. But yeah, you know what it is. Yeah, man. Flipping like what streaming services are you on out of interest, like?
Not many. I mean, Netflix for a long time was just the only one I had.
Yeah.
Then I got Mubi I think it was at the start of lockdown.
Yeah.
That I was sort of advised to get it. And I spent a year without actually paying for it, because if you offer it to someone else, they'll get a free month as well as you. Yeah. And then after about a year, Mubi must have clocked on. They were like, you keep offering it to so many people, we're just going to stop you doing it. So I've been paying for it for about a year, but it's just exceptional. It's like every single day at midnight, they will upload a new film, without exception. And it's just like quality film every time.
Yeah, is it Mubi that's got Titane at the minute?
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Flipping I didn't go on the actual app. I had to go with their, their Prime channel to watch Titane, and flipping, I couldn't get through all the stuff I wanted to, so I think I'm looking at a Mubi subscription.
Oh man, do it. It's like when I first got it, I got it they were offering me 7 days free, and I just binge watched. I think I watched like 8 movies a day for a week. And then at the end of the week...
Damn, yes! Big up, lads, big up.
At the end of the week, I was about to cancel, and they said, do you want another free month? And I was like, oh my God. I didn't have to put myself through that binge week. But yeah, it's sick.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it flags by the system, this dude's watching 8 films a day, man. Help him out. Hook him up. Hook the guy up, man. It's one of those, man. Yeah, man.
Yeah. That's what my mate said. He was like, you're going to flag up on their system. Yeah.
Hey, great stuff. So, So movies one of the ones I'm not on, and I really need to get on it, because as I say, I only got through Titane and a couple of other bits when I was on there. I think they got In the Realm of the Senses and all this kind of thing. I'm a horror guy, so I'm big on Shudder and all this. But I rock it with a VPN, man. I use Surfshark, and so I could get the American Shudder because it's much better. Yeah. But I was having a look at what other streaming services there are in I could get from America. And one of them is one called Tubi. Have you ever heard of Tubi?
No.
It's wild. It's a free streaming service. You need a VPN to watch it. I was using an Android box, but it turns out with Surfshark I could just use the Chromecast with it. But Tubi is absolutely insane. They have stuff that hasn't been around since VHS, some really schlocky stuff, but some absolutely fantastic stuff that you won't get anywhere else. I saw a bar chart of how many films are on the different services, and something like Netflix was here and Tubi was here. Yeah. It was like this. It was insane, and you got to watch adverts with it, but they're American adverts, so I don't mind. Yeah. I find them kind of amusing, especially all the really terrifying ones for medication.
Yeah.
It's
you think of how good you have it here.
It does freak me out. I saw an advert for cancer treatment. It's insane that you've got to advertise cancer treatment, as if people were umming and ahhing, and you're going to sell them with an advert, Jesus, flip it out. It's a weird system. I don't want to get into it. I will say, justice for Charlie. Shout out the Homeby Real Deal as ever, because there's a lot of problems with the American health system, and I'm not the guy to be going on about it. Look up Justice for Charlie, and you can learn a bit about it there from people who have actually dealt with these issues. But yeah, diverted all the way off very early in the episode. So let's talk about some films. Mm-hmm. So do you want to hit me with your first selection?
First selection is, 4 of the ones I picked are so dark. I ended this, I ended my selection with this film. So I thought Louis Buñuel's that obscure object of desire. Very light, cinematographically, very light. In terms of its characters as well. Yeah. It's all very fun-loving. And I guess it is it's stretching the bounds of psychological thriller, but the characters that are in it are very thrilled. So it's about this rich old man who is trying to seduce a young woman. So he's very thrilled by that. And she's very thrilled because he's rich. Like, that's it. And it's sort of this game of one-upmanship. Like, he thinks that he has the upper hand and she's so changeable that she gets the upper hand. And the most interesting thing about it is that Buñuel, when he was making the film, when he was first making it, he got this, I forget her name now, something like Marie Schneider. Yeah. And she just couldn't play the part. And he was sitting in a bar with his producer mate, and he was like, I can't make this film. She's so bad. And as a joke, he said, maybe I should get 2 people to play the part, 2 women. And his producer mate was like, that's amazing. And so throughout the entire film, this woman changes character, or changes the actress that's playing her. And like, when I was rewatching it recently, I was like, that's a different woman. Is it just because her hair's up, or is it because she's got too much makeup on? And then the more scenes I watched, I was like, right, I've got to look this up on Wikipedia now. Great. And I had to pause it, and it's a different woman. Which I just completely, I watched it first like 10 years ago, and I just completely forgot about that sort of thing about it. It's like, probably, it's my favorite film out of the 5 I picked. Yeah. Like, it's just so surreal and weird, and just like laugh out loud moments at points. And yeah, it's damn good. Right.
That's interesting, man. I've never seen that, but I'm going to be checking it out. That's a very interesting premise, like a sort of like cat and mouse chess game relationship dynamic thing between 2 people who believe that they're using each other, man. That's a very interesting premise, like, to be going away with, like.
Yeah, there's like one of the, how I like to think is, how I think about things is like through connection and comparison and contrast. And so throughout all of these films, there's something about animals in them. And it's like, there's this one scene where this big fat bourgeois old man, you know, the rich guy, is like, he's sitting with this woman's mum and saying, you know, can I take your daughter's hand in marriage? And he's like, there's like a little snap in the background, and he looks over and he presses his bell, and his servant comes in, and like he points to his servant to the corner of the room, and like his servant just picks up a mouse that's just been sort of, you know, clamped. And I can't remember the dialogue, but it's just like that sort of interlude of just ridiculous, like, non sequitur. It's like you're in a really serious situation asking someone, you know, oh, can I marry your daughter? And it's just like, oh, Jeeves, come in and, you know, there's just been a mouse that's just been killed. It's like, just, so cat and mouse is definitely like, it's definitely like a theme that he plays on, like, you know, the mice in the film are very funny.
Yeah, that's really interesting, man. I'm definitely going to check that one out. Like, what was the title again?
That Obscure Object of Desire.
Obscure Object of Desire. Yes, I'm fully on that.
Nice.
Okay, well, we'll move on. I've pulled up the wrong thing on my phone. And, no, I haven't. I've pressed the wrong thing on my phone. So I'm just going to do this from flipping memory anyway. Yeah, well, like, I'm... Like, psychological thrillers, like, I'm a bit of a thick bastard, so I don't watch that many of them. So I tend to skew more towards the Italian side of things. I like giallos, like the giallo genre, if you're unfamiliar. It came out of Italy, and it's called giallo, which means yellow, and it comes from these kind of like pulp paperbacks, which were very much schlocky whodunits, like, and that were adapted. That like influence this whole genre of films. So the first one I'm going to go for is considered by some people that it's a bit iffy. Like, there's probably people who are more who are deep dive into Italian cinema more than me will disagree with you. But consider the first giallo. It's Blood and Black Lace by Mario Bava.
Okay, I haven't heard of that, I don't think.
You're familiar with this one. It's from the back end of the 60s, and it sort of concerns this fashion house. And there's all kinds of fuckeries going on, like someone gets murdered there, as so often happens with these things. And there's this amazing shot at the start when this one clue is being highlighted by the police, and a room full of people, the models, the designers, various patrons of this fashion house are all in this room, and the camera cuts between each of them, all looking at it in a suspicious way. And all of these people have like something going on the sly they're all up to something sly.
It's like a game of Cluedo or something like.
Kind of, yeah. It's got that kind of Agatha Christie thing of it.
Right.
Like any one of these people could be the killer. There's something going on. There's something going on with it, but even everyone who isn't the killer is also on some fuckeries. Like, yeah. It's a beautiful film. I need to say it to start off. Like the giallo tropes were established with this film, and like one of the key ones is they're stylized. It looks very good. The kills in it, like these ones seem quite tame in comparison, but for like this period of the 60s, they were pretty wild, especially in a film that, like, you know, is shot in a way that has artistic merit and looks good. It looks so beautiful, like the opening credits where they have these kind of like red mannequins displaying it as people around it, and this amazing score. Like it really like doesn't look and sound like anything from the era, but you can trace the lineage of the film. Like without this film, you don't get the giallo genre, and you know, you don't get your Argentos and people like that. And without your Argentos, you don't get the same influence on like certain American directors, your De Palmas, your Scorsese's, that then do their things with these big blockbusters that go on to influence just cinema in general. Like, you know, so this is very much like the start of all of that. The little acorn from which mighty oaks grow, to use an absolute bait analogy. But it's just a fantastic film. I've got so much love for it. Like, it's the kind of thing I whack on, like, if I want people to think I'm intelligent and watch, like, really arty films, but actually, I want to watch someone getting stabbed.
Yeah.
It's one of those ones, like, it's a fantastic piece of work. Like, one thing that's very interesting about it is the design of the kill. It's always like about the black gloves in the giallo genre. The Italians, they love their black leather gloves. You don't see the killer is, but you see the hand with the black leather gloves. And this is the one that started it. But we also have like kind of this killer. The killer's faceless, effectively, because they're wearing like a mask that just obscures their features. Kind of like a morph suit kind of thing with a trench coat and like a trilby kind of hat. And like kind of similar to like the look of like Rorschach in The Watchmen, and like I always felt that he was influenced by that. But I spoke to some like comics people who know comics more than I do, and they said like that character was actually influenced by someone Steve Ditko created called The Question. But that character was around. Like it came around just after Blood and Black Lace was like dubbed into American and like dubbed into English. American is the language, or maybe it is. Yeah, but like and started appearing in drive-ins and American cinemas and this kind of thing, and like so it's quite possible it influenced it. I have like done a lot of Googling, and I found like a bunch of articles saying like Steve Ditko, this comics artist, like who's apparently like quite legendary in that world, had like definitely been influenced by this, and he was definitely a Mario Bava fan. And but it turned out they were written like by the same guy, like 15 years apart. Like, so I don't know how accurate it actually is, but I don't know. Watch the film. That kind of lineage is definitely going on. And this was certainly like a very influential piece of work. Like, it's certainly one I'd recommend checking out. Like, fantastic soundtrack, looks beautiful, really involving plot. The giallo genre would go in quite some different directions after this. Yeah. But this is like an incredible piece of work which I'd encourage anyone to check out. Like, it's one of the few Italian films that I actually watch in Italian and watch with the subtitles, because like it's mainly got Italian people in it. A lot of like Italian films, like since like Mussolini, like they weren't allowed to record live sound during the Mussolini era. Like they kind of were, but like a government official always had to be present on set of any film being made to make sure he's not talking shit on Mussolini, like, or the actors aren't saying things. And like, you know, it's obviously long taking this flip, you know, if you're shooting on location, taking this government official round to you. So what the Italians used to do is they never filmed they never recorded the sound on set. Right. And like it'd all be like ADR, they just film the thing. And like the actors would do their voices in the studio. And like after Mussolini, was dispatched. I won't go into the full details of that. But there's stuff online, there's stuff in books. You can find out about the history of Mussolini. But after he was gone, like they kind of kept the format of not recording the live sound because they realised, like, for one thing, like, well, we could just dub it into any language and then we don't have to just sell it in Italy. And like they also realised, like, we can get actors that don't speak Italian. So like a lot of Italian films, like they'd have like, there'd be 3 people in the scene. Every one of them speaks a different language. And like they just have a script written like in a vague phonetic way or like sometimes not even the language the film was in. And they just all say it. And they just sort it out in the dub. So, like, that's why you get the crazy dubbing on all the spaghetti westerns and all this kind of thing. Like, so, like, I don't feel... So, like, because, like, a lot of the films weren't even filmed in one language, it's one of the things, spaghetti westerns, giallos, things like that. They go into the same category as kung fu movies and Godzilla movies, where I'm perfectly happy to watch them in the dubbed English, because that was how they would have been released. However, this one, like, there's something about it, the style about it. I just enjoy watching it in the original Italian.
Yeah, well, your description of it is definitely tempting me to buy it. Like, I think my introduction to Giallo was mostly Argento. A few of his films I really do like, but I watched this. There was one Giallo on Shudder a couple of months ago, and it was the one where, like, it's a really weird. It is a surreal scene. A zombie is underwater and he's having a fight with a shark.
That would be, Zombie Flesh Eaters, a.k.a. Zombie, directed by the homeboy Lucio Fulci. Like,
yes.
I've got 3 copies of that.
Oh, my God.
I'm not going to lie, I love
that. The ending to that is just, like, it seems really drawn out, and it's like, come on. It's like, and the zombies are walking really slowly. Like, I prefer zombies that are quick.
Yeah.
That's a really, like, huge insult to zombies there, but, like...
We didn't really get the quick zombies till 28 days later.
Yes.
And it was like I think with the computer games, like when the controls got a bit better, so you could avoid them a bit quicker, they sped the zombies up.
Right.
I think that was it. But I think the first ever film with running zombies, the original director, Umberto Lenzi, doesn't like it being referred to as a zombie film, but it fucking is, was Nightmare City, and that was an Italian one. And... apparently Quentin Tarantino said to Umberto Lenzi, I really like your zombie film, Nightmare City, and he's refused to speak to Tarantino since. So he took that one personal. But flipping, we're going to be hitting some more on Italy later on in the list, but I'll tell you what, I'll sling that over to you. Give me your next selection, please.
Next selection is a film that's on Mubi called Black Bear. Directed by Lawrence Michael Levine. It's the only film of his I've seen, but it's a contemporary, I wouldn't call it contemporary American classic, but it's up there with some of the best American cinema I've seen in the past 5 years or so. It's about like a woman who, going through a bit of a difficult relationship with her husband, goes out to a retreat. And I can't really describe it. She has an argument with the people that run this cottage, and it's split into 2 parts. They have the argument, and then part 2, I don't really want to give it away. I hate doing spoilers, but like it's a really recent film. I think it's 2020 or something, but I really recommend everyone go and check it out, and I really don't want to give it away. One thing I will say is like it's completely different to the first film that I mentioned, because it's so difficult to explain. So the actor in the first film the character in the first film was played by 2 actors. The actors in these films play 2 characters. So split into 2 parts, and they both, they all play, well, the 3 main characters play 2 different characters in those parts. But yeah, it's like, I don't want to give it away. It's like after the ending of the first part, I rewatched it 2 days ago, but the first time I watched it, I was just left baffled. I was like, what the hell has just happened? Like, it's one of those films, it's just like, when you're left with that feeling of just like pure astonishment, is like, what have I just watched? Yeah, it's not like as extreme as some of the other films I'll mention, but like, it's pretty much like, whoa, that's really interesting. Like, but it does certainly make me want to check out a lot more of his films. Very stylistically as well, very sort of, the acting in it is great. Christopher Abbott is in it, who shout out to, what is it, the son of David Cronenberg, Brandon Cronenberg.
Oh yeah.
He had Christopher Abbott in Possessor.
Yeah, Possessor,
yeah.
incredible piece
Man,
of work.
I haven't put that on my list,
film.
so I don't want to talk about it too much, but incredible. Christopher Abbott is just, I love his acting. Yeah. So yeah, like, shout out to that quick. Yeah.
Possessor's one I was umming and ahhing about, but I thought it doesn't quite meet the specifications of, like, I think it's more sci-fi. I think it's like, I don't want to go too. Like, I'm trying to avoid things that are like sci-fi and supernatural, because like a lot. But Possessor, incredible film, incredible piece of work. Like Crimes of the Future dropping soon.
Right, yeah, I haven't seen that yet, but
the new David Cronenberg, like, flipping. Apparently, it absolutely pops. It's like classic Cronenberg, running at modern levels, like. But I don't think it's like, I know a lot of people overseas have seen it, but they haven't picked it up for distribution over here yet, which is. It's annoying me. Sort that out. Pick it up. Fix it. I need to watch that film. Hook me up. Yes.
Yeah, the Cronenbergs are crazy. Just like, Brandon clearly has watched all of his dad's films, and he's just thinking, how can I improve on that for the 21st century?
Yeah. Now his dad's back to say, stand back. Yeah. This is how we do it. This is how it's done around these parts.
Sit down, son. Sit down. Yeah. Black Bear though, what else can I say about it? It's just like, the script is so witty, it's so quick, and it's so weird as well. The situation that this woman, that Allison, is put in on this retreat, and the script is just like bouncing. You know, it's like, you know, when two people just bounce off each other, it's like, ugh. It's like the script is just keeps you going, and then, you know, part one ends, and it's like, what the hell? And then part two happens, and it's kind of slowed down a bit. But it's still good.
Yeah,
really good.
Oh, that's another interesting one, man. I'll definitely check it out. Well, I'm going to swing over to America for. I'm going to swing over to America for this one, and this one's got quite a star-studded cast, and I pulled it up. Recently. Because of the passing of Ray Liotta. It's my favourite film that he's in. This would be Identity from 2003.
With John Cusack.
Yeah.
John Cusack.
Flipping incredible. Some of the people in this class: John Cusack, Ray Liotta, Amanda Peet, Jake Busey. Like, there's a lot of good people in this very interesting ensemble cast. Like, this is a great piece of storytelling. Flipping, like, this is a fantastic piece of work. Like, it's probably my favourite John Cusack film. I was going to say something about Cusack then, but we're going to save that for the Patreon episode, because I don't want to say it anywhere that it can be Googled. But yeah, anyway, like, this film, it concerns a bunch of people that have all been stranded at this hotel, and there appears to be like a killer amongst them. Meanwhile, elsewhere, and we don't know if it's happening concurrently. We don't know if it's happening, if it's something that's happened in the past that they're cut in between, or if it's just something further away. It's cut in between, like, some kind of experimental treatment at a mental hospital, where, like, the board of directors are being convinced that they have to, like, go through with this kind of procedure that no one believes will actually work. And it's cut in between these two things. And we're learning bits about the characters. And, you know, we've got some people that have, like, quite aggressive personalities. There's a lot of personality clashing. And, taken at face value, it could easily just be a slasher movie with a whodunit element for, like, a good while of the film. But then it switches up and it's a whole different ball game. Like.
Yeah, I remember. I don't remember it that well at all. But I remember the ending has such a twist.
Yeah,
something really weird is going on, and I don't remember it that well at all.
That's
who's it directed by? He's done a few other pretty good films.
James Mangold. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got a few bangers to his name. Like, hang on, let's have a look. He did Ford versus Ferrari and all that kind of thing. Yeah, flipping. As a director, he's done a lot of the X-Men films. I find it quite interesting that he's gone to some of the X-Men films after that, all the Wolverine shit and that. 310 to Yuma, Walk the Line, for Girl Interrupted. Jesus, that's a. I didn't sort of put it together that they were all directed by the same guy, but those are some fantastic ones. Girl Interrupted is another personal favourite of mine. Like, it's
a great surname as well, Mangold.
Yeah. All the best shit. Bros and books. That's the cool shit. But that's one of, like, it's early 2000s, and like after this point we've come away, we're like nearly a decade out from the sort of like a post-7 wave, and so there's not really like lots of those kind of things, like, sort of straddling the line between horror and thriller, where it's basically a thriller but the aesthetics are horror. We're a while away from that, and there's not many films around here doing this, and there's not really like films with huge ensemble there's not really many films that are like whodunits with huge ensemble casts that go as hard as this film does. And it does go hard. Like, that back to, like, your Agatha Christie's, your Murder on the Orient Express, like getting a large amount of great actors in the same space and having people die and we'll all try and figure out what's going on. That is like such a great setup, but it's not something we really get frequently nowadays. And like, we very, very rarely get anything that goes as hard as this one does with the premise. The kills are pretty crazy in it, like. If you're a fan of like great kills and great horror shit, or you're a fan of great scripts and great storytelling, like. This is one of those films that really combines those two things, so I reckon it's definitely worth a check for anyone. Like,
yeah, I will be checking now again. It's one of the films that I got rid of, maybe. It's one of the first films I got rid of when I was getting rid of them a couple of years ago. So I haven't seen it in a while. So I will be checking that out again.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. So it may be your next selection then.
Next selection. Excuse me. Next selection is one of the freakiest films of all time, Antichrist.
Oh, hell yeah. We're going Von Trier. Let's fucking go.
All right. I could literally talk about this film all day. So when I first watched it, when I was maybe 20, I don't know. I rewatched it about 3 times, showing it to like 3 of my close friends. And like, I wasn't really watching the film. I was just watching for their reactions. A film starring Charlotte Gainsbourg and Willem Dafoe, who are unnamed.
They're man and woman, aren't
man
they?
And woman, yeah. So their infant son falls off the balcony window, and Charlotte Gainsbourg, woman, sort of falls into a coma at the funeral, and so Willem Dafoe is allowed to go through his grief, and then it's all about her grief when she wakes up. She's got atypical grief, and he sort of suggests that they go into the forest, and she's scared of nature, and it's about a sort of what's it called, the theory that if you're exhibited to something, then you can get over it. Exposure therapy. Yeah, thanks. And yeah, like, things just get weird from there. Like, again, I don't want to spoil it for anyone that hasn't seen it, but things get really, really weird.
It's quite an interesting film. It's sort of like implied at the start. It's worth noting that that at the start they are having sex when their child falls out the window, and she sees it. and she sees it while they're having sex. And like it's kind of, we can't really judge like what's going on in her head. Like, is it something that she's let happen? Or
yeah, it's like she believes that she's let it happen because she's writing an essay on gynocide and about she's criticizing it. She's saying that it shouldn't be done, and then she sort of comes to question if she is a witch, and then there's this whole sort of trust issue going on, sort of like a game of one-upmanship in a way. It's like Willem Mann, played by Willem Dafoe, discovers photos of their kids' shoes put on the wrong feet.
Yeah.
And it's like she's almost trying to make him deformed, or at least that's what. And then she discovers
a kind of a Munchausen's by proxy kind of thing, like, isn't it?
But she discovers that he's discovered those photos, and then she sort of starts attacking him. You're going to leave me, and then she becomes so paranoid that he's going to leave her that like she does just some abominable things.
Yeah, it's a lot of like mind games and playing on this dynamic between them, like, and there's the whole thing like, because it seems that in some ways she is the bad person, and like in other ways, you know, the fact that he has taken her to this cabin in the forest in the first place because Willem Dafoe plays a therapist in it, and it's obviously horrendously unethical to like sort of be your wife's therapist. Be your own wife's therapist for something that's so personal and so critical that has affected you as well. Like, so it's a very dark film. Like Lars von Trier, he's a dark guy.
Man, I think he writes all of his scripts in Danish, and then I think he translates them to English, and his scripts are just weird. Like, for some people, I appreciate if you can't get to grips with him because he is just a weird guy. I feel
like he intentionally puts a disconnect there, but like that's what with the translating thing, by having something just slightly off, just slightly uncanny valley. There's something just wrong with it, like, and these are people, they're speaking, they're communicating, like these events are happening, but there's always like something that's just off with it, like, and obviously he's spoke about his depression and like how he tries to express that through these films, and he kind of like effectively wallows in his depression. So I think that's kind of like he's trying to simulate that disconnect that he has from the world itself, like.
Yeah, stylistically as well, though, like there's this sort of there are about maybe 4 or 5 frames where you just see in blackness Charlotte Gainsbourg's character screaming out, and it's sort of like the most famous example of that is like when you see Tyler Durden, one frame of Tyler Durden in Fight Club in The Office, but it's like there are more frames of Gainsbourg's character here. You just see her screaming. You can just see it if you watch it carefully, and that happens about twice. And it's just like subconsciously, like he's showing us things. But I think one of the great things about horror is the things that don't get shown, or even worse, the things that are shown, but you can't quite see them, or you have to concentrate really hard to see them. And he's like, he's showing us just the horror of her life. And he's like, oh, it's so like existentially, it's like, oh, crisis level like stuff. It's just so morbidly awful. Is like and like the Depression trilogy, Nymphomaniac and Melancholia as well, and his use of classical music, like he uses Wagner at the start of Melancholia, he uses Handel at the start of Antichrist. It's so sort of stylistically highfalutin, and then like he's just talking about the most depraved things that human beings can do. I love it, but again, it's not going to be for everyone. I
don't think like at this point, you're either a Lars von Trier fan or you're not.
Yeah.
And like, I don't think there's many people who won't. Like, if you're the kind of person who's into his films, you're probably going to have discovered them. Like, I'd say like Antichrist. It doesn't feel like you should be saying that. Oh yeah, this is a good starting point, but. It doesn't feel like that at all.
You've got to work your way into Von Trier. Start with something like, I don't know, even Dancer in the Dark or Dogville. Start on something a bit easier than Antichrist. And if you like his films that are maybe a bit easier, then just sort of ease your way in.
But you should be able to pick up pretty quickly if it's something you're on board with or not. But yeah, there we have it. Like, so yeah. Round it off with one quick fact on it. Like, there is some actual penetration shown in this film, but body doubles were used because apparently Willem Dafoe's dick was too big for. A porn star was substituted for Willem Dafoe because his dick was so big that it made it look kind of funny. They made it, apparently that's supposed to be true. The boy be packing, the weird dude be packing like. So like, just remember that next time you're watching your favourite Spider-Man film.
He's a great actor as well, big dick, great actor. What more can you want?
Incredible, man. He's running shit, like he's bossing things. Big up him for that, like. Big up Willem Dafoe and his penis. Okay, now, me being me for my next selection, I'm going to swing it back to Italy again in Giallos. Yeah, I know, I'm kind of invested in these things, but, you know, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to do a full Giallo pod, because I don't know anyone I could talk about it with, so I'm, like, sneaking them in here. But I'm going to go towards the more schlocky end with Delirium from 1987. This one, directed by Mario Bava's son, Lamberto Bava.
Sorry, that's a funny name.
Yeah. And, this one significantly more schlocky, but has a kind of a similar setup to Blood and Black Lace. Only this time, we're not dealing with a 60s fashion house. We're dealing with, like, some kind of mansion where someone is shooting, like, pornographic magazines in, like, the late 80s. So it's a whole different set of circumstances, but basically the same thing. And whilst he certainly doesn't have his father's visual panache, and whilst this film's certainly a lot more exploitative, it's a lot more schlocky, it's kind of interesting to, like, have them as a companion piece. Like, there is a lot more tits on display, but, you know, it's the difference between 1968 and 1987. That's what it is. And the kills, very bloody indeed. But, like, at this point, the genre's been running, like, 20 years, like, and people have taken it to some quite interesting places. So, you got to vary it about a bit. And, like, one thing that came about from the giallo genre was that the shots from the killer's point of view. And, like, this is something that would go on to be in Black Christmas, would go on to be in Halloween. And, you know, you don't know who the killer is, but we're seeing it through your eyes, so you effectively are the killer. One thing that Delirium does that's quite interesting is it tries to show you how the killer sees the, people. And they do this with, like, physical special effects. Like, one of the first kills is a woman, and the killer believes that she's just obsessed with looks and all that. So you see her walking along, and, like, her head's just a giant eye. Like, her whole head's just an eye, and, like, it cuts between that and reality, like, and I think that's, like, quite an interesting twist on it.
Bit of body horror there too, then.
Yeah. It's quite yeah, and, like, the other time that happens, it's, like, really quite significant, is a kill involving a load of, like, bees or wasps or whatever. I think it was bees, because they just used bees as, like, the stand-on, because no one was riding out for bees, like, back then, the way they are now, like, you know, flipping. But, yeah, anyway, and this woman's, like, you know, the killer's looking at her, and like, before he, like, puts these bees into the building he's going to trap her in, he's like perving on her, and, like, she's got the head of a bee.
Oh my God.
So
this is 1987.
Yeah, it's a very,
it's
very surreal. It's fantastic. I got it as part of the 88 Films Italian collection. It pops on Prime occasionally. Like, it's one of those things, like, where I don't think they renew the license that regularly, so sometimes it's there, sometimes it isn't. You could definitely see this one on Tubi. This is the kind of thing that Tubi always has on. Interesting thing about the beehead woman. She's played by Sabrina Solano. I think she's playing herself, even though she got killed in the film. Like, because the character is called Sabrina, and she was doing a lot of topless modelling and all, but it's also Sabrina of Euro pop hit of the 80s, Boys, 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 bracket Summertime Love. You know, boys, 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 just looking for a good time. She's in this film playing herself with her tits out in the head of a bee before being killed by bees. And if that isn't enough to sell you on the film, I do not know what is.
No more boys for you, Sabrina.
Yeah. I got to say, like, I was rewatching it, like, during, like, lockdown 1. I looked her up, and that was when I made the connection between Sabrina, between boys, boys, boys. Should have been bees, bees, bees. Yeah, and I made that connection, and I looked her up, and like she's still looking pretty fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of work going on, but years have elapsed. If she wants to do that, she could do that. But the main character of this, who was like flipping, just gorgeous in this, I looked her up. Aged like a fucking grape, and and apparently she's now involved in like far right politics in Italy. So there we go. Like, I don't like that meme where they say like having nasty opinion ages you, and like I don't like flipping like categorizing people because of their views. But in this case, kind of fucking true. But yeah. On that note, do you want to hit me with your next selection?
Yes, sir. So, Lemming.
This is something that someone recommended to me not long ago, and I was drunk and I wasn't properly listening, and I was listening and I blacked it out of my mind. So, but I remember being told I need to check this out, and I don't know anything about it. So fill me in.
Dominic Mole, who's I haven't seen any of his other films. So lemming is a rodent that's native to Scandinavia, and in the film, a lemming gets stuck in the sink piping, and the guy he works for like he manufactures sinks or water supply, the lemming is it's a symbol for this woman Alice, who is the wife of Alan Getty's boss, who is the water supplier person. And basically this woman, she kills herself. And before she does that, she says to Getty and Charlotte Gainsbourg, who is his wife, connections, she says, oh, my husband, he sleeps with whores. You two, you have such a perfect marriage. You're such a perfect couple. And then that's the premise that the film leads off, is that it gets into his head that, well, what if we're not the perfect couple? And the whole film, the lemming is the sort of symbol that sort of motivates that plot development. And it's just like, it's sort of, by the end of the film, it's sort of become impossible. It's like you can't follow it. It's you can't follow the line from reality to where he starts imagining things. It's like, once you realize that he is imagining things, it's like you have to go back half an hour to realize, wait, when did he start imagining? So it's just really weird, and there are a lot of, it's so dark and it's so claustrophobic. My favorite part of it is when it's always concentrated on Charlotte Gainsbourg's face, and she's in the room where the woman has killed herself, and it's sort of, there are jump cuts and it just continues on her face, and it's so claustrophobic. Yeah, just a great French film, 2005. Good, really good, really weird.
Yeah, like lemmings. I think it's supposed to be a myth, but it might not. But like, what is like the idea is like the lemmings, they follow each other. So if one falls off a cliff, like they'll all follow after it. Like.
Yes. So there's this myth of they have a suicidal tendency.
Yeah,
and it's so and the sort of zoologist in the film or whatever he is, veterinarian, says, oh no, that's just a myth. But then obviously you're sort of caught up in the drama of it, and it's like, well, is it a myth? And these two people, these, this perfect couple, they don't believe it's a myth, and they think, oh, it's, it's a symbol and it's fate, and it's really weird scene in it. But again, I don't want to ruin it for anyone.
Also, shout out the I think it was like the early 90s computer game Lemmings, which was pretty fantastic. And that was a bunch of these like lemming creatures, and you'd have to like do things to try and stop them from falling off things, and like you'd have to like get them to safety and all this kind of thing. That was a great little game, and that they rebooted it for mobile phones like a few years ago, and I had a solid month when I got back into that zone.
Yeah.
But yeah, Lemming from 2005. That's yeah. Hey, I'm loving these recommendations, man. You like everything. You pretty much sold everything that you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you. But like I did pick them at half random, and then when I was rewatching them, I was like, well, what are the connections that I can draw? And it's like animals. All of the films that I've mentioned so far: Black Bear, Antichrist with the three beggars, Lemming, and in The Obscure Object of Desire, there's a pig and the mouse. Yeah. So I love animals. Shout out to animal welfare groups.
Yeah, big up animals, and shout out my cats, Tony and Dillinger. They are absolute geezers. And as for frogs, I'm sorry, Dillinger killed one of you this morning. Frog season, my cat kills a lot of frogs. But yeah, mucks around the allotments, terrible scenes and everything. But yeah, like I'm noticing like between like what you're picking and the selections I picked, like we used to try and go for top fives on the show, but we realised it didn't work. You just want to, like, 5 of a theme is much better because then you can come back and do things again. Like I've noticed, like, all the films that, like, we've kind of gravitated to, even though we never really communicated, like, what we were doing. We just had this vague idea of, like,
I prefer it that way. I prefer to just be spontaneous.
Yeah, me too, man. Me too. But and then you see themes occurring. I've noticed that, like, all our films seem to be to do with like fractured realities and separate personalities and mirror images of people, the way you've had films that have had like multiple actors playing the same character, and that's something that we'll come back to in my list. Nice. And like, the same thing from different vantage points. So I'm seeing that there's a lot of similarities in what we're talking about there, even though we're talking about like wildly different films. Those themes tend to like have crossed over, and that also carries on to the next film, which I'm going to talk about, which is Brian De Palma's Body Double.
Ooh. See, now when I was sort of looking at Giallo, I Dressed to Kill, and he's got maybe 1 or 2 more. Is this like influenced by Giallo?
Yeah, I'd certainly say so. Like post Phantom of the Paradise, where it was presumably just influenced by all the cocaine. Like post like a lot of his stuff, like Dressed to Kill, was very giallo influenced. Like I think this film's influenced very much by my last film, but it's just sort of influenced by the genre in general. But obviously it's American, and he's bringing his thing to it, and because he brought this kind of like, we got there's a lot of sex and violence and like a lot of stylization, which people don't like. Some people don't think you can make sex and violence look beautiful. They didn't at this point in history anyway. They thought like sex and violence should be in the nasty films that the horrible people watch. They didn't think it could be art. And like that was what De Palma was taking from the Italians, and there was a lot of backlash from like Dressed to Kill, like why are you putting all this in a film with Michael Caine in, like, and all this kind of thing, like, because it's a very chaotic film, and like if this film wasn't on my list, Dressed to Kill certainly would be. Yeah, sorry about that. Had a wee camera glitch there, which I am going to deal with in the edit. But yeah, nonetheless. Anyway, so at this point, De Palma, he's getting a lot of shit for like not only putting sex and violence in his films, but making them look good, which is something that...
Getting shit for making stuff look good.
Effectively, yeah. Like that's what I feel like, it's like, it's coming from Hitchcock, but like Hitchcock's feeding into giallo and all this, like, But yeah, Body Double is the film where he said, fuck you. You think my other films had a lot of sex and violence in them? Hold my fucking beer. This one's particularly chaotic, and this explores similar themes. It's about a guy, it's an actor, and he's having issues with his identity. Like he's like having panic attacks, he's having issues, and he's obsessed with this girl. And there's kind of a rear window thing where he appears to see her be killed. Or was she, or was the person involved killed? Like Body Double, it's a lot about doppelgangers and illusion and sleight of hand and all this kind of thing. And it's also full of like loads of excellent flipping kill set pieces, and like lots of sex in it, because he finds himself involved in this world that involves like the pornographic world, the underground porn scene of early 80s LA. And I'm not entirely sure what that was. I'm not sure he represented it accurately, but yeah, it's got a lot of that going on, and it's very much about fractured realities and interpretations and impersonation and all this kind of thing. And it's also got some pretty wild sequences in it. At one point, the character, like, I'm pretty sure that porn films in the 80s didn't go like this. But, like, in order to get close to this woman he believes may have been used as the body double for, like, something that he thinks he might have seen, or something that may have been set up to confuse him, or it could just be him going insane. He like, effectively gets into the porn industry and appears in this porn film. And, like, I've seen clips of 80s porn in the past, as many of us have. I don't remember a moment where they opened up a porn scene by the main star being welcomed into a sex club by Holly Johnson of Frankie Goes to Hollywood as the band themselves perform Relax, Don't Do It as he walks towards the woman he's about to fuck in a full sex club. It's an incredible musical sequence in the middle in a sex club that's actually a porn film set. And yeah, have I sold you on the film yet? I haven't explained it well, but have I sold you?
You have. I was thinking about, yeah, I probably haven't seen this De Palma, actually. What year was this?
This was 1984.
1984.
Yeah, incredible.
Was Blowout 1981?
Yeah, I think so, because this would have been on the sort of like backlash to these things that you've been putting out. Well, this was a particularly controversial one. This was one that in the novel American Psycho, the character Patrick Bateman was very much obsessed with. Right. The line, "I've got to return some videotapes."
That was about Body Double.
Yes.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, he's obsessed with this film, with this film in it, and I didn't watch. And I watched it because when I was young, I was into American Psycho, the book before the film had come out, and I'd got into if you read American Psycho and it's the first horror book you've read after fucking Stephen King or something, it's a big step up in it. I sought out Body Double, and it was edited in the UK. But the editing wasn't to do with anything that Patrick Bateman was involved with. It was the sight of some blood dripping down some breasts right at the end credits, because that was one of the things the video nasties era under James Furman. You can't have blood appear on a tit because it will cause people to rape. That was the logic. That was the logic at the time. You can't get it uncut now. I picked up I can't remember who put out the Blu-ray, but it's a very good Blu-ray and it's out now. But yeah, that's a fantastic film. I'd urge anyone to check out. Yeah.
Nice.
So yeah, so do you want to hit me with your final selection then?
It is Bad Timing.
Ooh.
Nicholas Roeg. 1980, I think. Set in Vienna, starring Art Garfunkel. Funny story. Well, not a funny story, but this was almost about to not make my shortlist, and I sort of looked at it. It was about to go in the no pile, and I sort of looked at Art Garfunkel's face, and I thought of who did I think of? Do you guess?
I'd have thought Paul Simon.
Yeah. And I thought of The Graduate, and like these Bad Timing and The Graduate are so thinly, like there's such a thin comparison to be made between them. So in Bad Timing, Art Garfunkel plays this sort of psychoanalyst who starts an affair with this American woman. He's American too. And they just start this affair. It's really destructive. But yeah, that's about the only, like, you know, comparison between The Graduate and, I don't know, I just thought of Simon and Garfunkel, you know, and it's like, it's so weird in terms of it's so much darker than, you know, The Affair in The Graduate is all sort of, well, you know, mostly fun-loving, and it's a bit, you know, Dustin Hoffman is, he's really sort of posh and small, whereas Art Garfunkel in this is just sort of really, really dark and really sort of ruthless.
So what's the setup for this?
So he meets Teresa Russell, whose name I think is Milena Flaherty in the film. He meets her at a party. She's really forward, really into him. He's not into her. But they start up this affair, and it's basically, it's sort of, okay, so it's done through flashback as well. You start off in a hospital where Harvey Keitel plays the detective who is asking Art Garfunkel what happened with this girl. She's just taken an overdose. And through flashback, we realize a lot about their relationship and how dysfunctional it was. And we realize like what an awful guy he is. And the ending is like one of the most horrible but weird endings I've ever seen on film. And yeah, it's just really artsy film as well. Like Nicholas Roeg is just sort of, he's playing with you as an audience member. Like some of the camera angles and some of the activity of the camera. He also has a lot of like interior monologue, like where his characters will say something in their head before saying it out loud. Just a lot of weird quirks. It's just like, oh, that's so artsy. So when I was thinking about artsy films, I was like, right, got to put Bad Timing in there. Yeah, it's very artsy. It's very, and Art Garfunkel, what better person to play the main character than someone called Art?
Is right, that.
Is right.
Yeah, man.
So yeah, it's kind of like, why I wanted to compare it to The Graduate is because the other four films I mentioned, there is quite a lot of connections between them. This film is kind of like the odd one out. You know, if I could just look at my notes. So I guess names play an important part in a lot of the films. Yeah. So in Black Bear, the names change. In Antichrist, they have no names. In Lemming, the wife of this guy has the fantasy that he has cheated on her. And so she wants him to call her by the woman who has killed herself, basically. And then in That Obscure Object of Desire, the girl that this rich guy is chasing after, she wants to remain a virgin. Conchita is her name, which is like a synonym for conception in Spanish. And then the last word in this film, in Bad Timing, is the name of this woman, Milena. And it's just Art Garfunkel outside like a really big hotel in New York, and he's being driven off in a taxi and he's shouting after her. And it's just, it's the most beautiful ending. Like 5 minutes before was really horrible, and then it ends on this really sort of somber note, and it's like, ugh, it's so goosebumps. Yeah, it's really good.
Fucking incredible. Like, and we'll wrap this up with, my final film. And like, I find it, like I said earlier, like I find it amazing how like we've had so many of these themes like sort of pop together. And like the final film I'm going to go for, it is an Argento. It is my favourite giallo, and it is 1982's Tenebrae. Yeah, you familiar with this one? To
be honest, with Argento, the only film that I can think of from memory is Bird with Crystal Plumage.
Yeah.
Like, but I know that I've seen maybe at least about 5 of his films, but I can never remember the names of them. Like, I've probably seen it, but I'm not sure.
So he's very much one of those, I'm an Argento obsessive. I've seen all his films, I've seen all of his films from his like sort of golden era, from like Bird with the Crystal Plumage through to about Trauma, and like there's things like Stendhal Syndrome that are outliers from when he kind of fell off a bit, that are still fucking banging. But like I've seen them all a lot, so I could separate them apart. But he's very much like a filmmaker you experience. Like, so you might not take it all in. Like, so if you've only watched them once, you might not be able to put everything together. But Tenebrae is my favourite giallo. It concerns, like, I'll hit you with the IMDb synopsis here. An American writer is stalked and harassed by a serial killer who is murdering everyone associated with his work on his latest book. And yeah, this one's a banger. It's got your man John Saxon in it, being a cop, which is what we like to see John Saxon doing. Like, and it's all this, and this was a video nasty, but this was the video nasty that like I used to like get all of them by tape trading. I'd go to Wrexham Beast Market, and like there was that guy who was like basically selling X-rental videos at the side of a van, and that would be my main source of horror films as a kid, because that guy did not take ID. And like Tenebrae was probably the first one when I realised that something incredibly violent, the first film where I realised that something incredibly violent could also be art. You know what I mean? And like some of the kills in this are incredible. Like they've got that like early 80s, late 70s, really red blood. And
Yeah.
like,
Oh yeah, the blood, man. That's the thing that gets me about giallo. It's like it looks like ketchup.
yeah. I mean, that's the thing, like, for years, like, you know, like, when I was growing up, like, I just want to see, like, oh, that's not a realistic colour of blood, that, you know, so, you know, it needs to be more realistic. But, like, later on, like, you know, now I appreciate, like, oh, that's not what we're doing. We're not trying to make it look realistic. We're painting a picture. We're creating art, and, like, so many of the images from this film are fucking art, like, again, this is one you're gonna have to check out, like, and it's very involved, like, and it's all about contrasts and doppelgangers and doubles, and everything in this film has a mirror image to everything. Like, even certain like cars you'll see pass, like there'll be something reflected, and every character reflects something else, and it's incredibly complicated to break down without really spoiling anything. Like, I dare say that if anyone's like found their way to this, they've if you're watching Kinell Sinister Cinema, you're probably familiar with this, so I'm probably not spoiling anything. But at the same time, it's just like I'd rather talk about the impact that this film had on me. It is an incredible fucking work of art, and it brings together these themes like of like equals and opposites and mirror images and reflections, and it does it with like this insane sort of, you know, through who done it with all these crazy psychosexual flashbacks of like a girl sticking a red stiletto in a guy's mouth while he's being bullied by the girls that are about to gangbang her on a beach. It's an art film, but yeah, you'd get it if you watched it. Also, will say, greatest soundtrack of all time. This one, opening theme tune to this, is my all-time favourite piece of music that has been written for a film and is in a film. It was later sampled by Justice. That's worth a mention. And it's also quite famous for, like, this has, like, a 2.5 minute tracking shot where, like, the camera's moving between, like, windows looking into a different room in a house. So you can see the different levels and the people that are doing things in it. And, this is one of the most influential shots of the time. Like, really, there's no reason to do it. There's a million other much easier ways to shoot that shot. But he was like, nah, I am Dario Argento and my balls are massive. We are doing it this way because that's what I'm saying.
Not as big as Willem Dafoe's.
He's got the dick, Argento's got the balls. Fucking if you could buy
Splice them together.
Oh, fucking hell, man! If them two did the fusion dance, man, fucking like we'd have some Cockzilla fucking territory going on, like destroying Europe. But yes. Nice. But yeah, so this tracking shot, like this is the one that influences Scorsese to do ridiculous, very hard to execute tracking shots and all this thing. This is one that sets a lot of things in motion that like influence the guys that influence all the cinema what you watch today, like that kind of kinetic filmmaking, like with long shots, which is rather than fast edits. and like that like gives us the styles that lead to all your fucking superhero films today. Like all like anything that's shot really well, like a lot of it comes down to this one shot, and they spent 3 days doing this shot, but they got it right on the second take, and he's like, no, let's do it again just in case.
Well, so he was a bit of a perfectionist.
He was at the time. Fucking, he hasn't been for quite a few years. I'm hoping he's coming back. Like, he's got a new one dropping soon, so I'm hoping this is a bit of a return to form. It's back on familiar territory, and we know we can pull it back with a Giallo, like. But yeah,
who's the soundtrack by?
The soundtrack's by Goblin.
Yes, right. So that's another Argento I've seen where I think it starts. One of the opening shots is like a haunted house of some sort, and the bass just kicks in, and it's like, oh my god, this is one of the best soundtracks I've heard on a film. Yeah. It's like, that's one thing I'll say for Argento is like the music is just on point. Yeah, on point.
Yeah, he did lots of work with Goblin. Like they were basically his boys. Like they do concerts now where they just like cause they're like kind of a prog rock band, but he just like got them in and said, nah, you do my soundtracks now. you make banging music for my movies. And now they just do like concerts of his soundtracks, and they fucking bang.
Nice.
But yeah, man, fucking like Goblin, well worth checking out. Like, I've got the theme to Tenebrae on my running soundtrack, and it was also sampled by Justice on I can't remember which track it was on their album from that brief period when Justice absolutely fucking bodied things. But yeah. So I think that's wrapping up pretty much all we've got to do on these things. Like, this has been a really interesting conversation. I've really enjoyed it, and I really like how we managed to like find themes without discussing things like the similar things we like. And I'm definitely checking out every film you've recommended, man.
Nice, thank you for having me.
Yeah,
it's been so good.
Before we go, is there anything you want to plug or anything?
Not really.
Any socials or
no?
Hey, he's off grid. The only place you can catch him is Kinell Sinister Cinema.
Yeah.
And you will see him back on the KSC because this has been a fantastic episode. We are going to switch over to KSC Plus. I haven't come up with a name for the Patreon bonus bullshit yet, but we're switching over to the bonus bullshit now. Thanks for this one. Safe.